Hello, and welcome to the Eastwind HealerCast. This is an opportunity to learn more about the expertise, experience, and excitement each of our practitioners bring to the services they provide for clients here at Eastwind Healing Center in downtown Iowa City. We are a collection of independent business owners who share this beautiful integrative healing space. We're offering this podcast as an opportunity to learn more about services offered here at Eastwind, and this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for proper medical care or the initiation of a practitioner-client relationship. My name is Dr. Carrie Hoosman, and I have a psychiatric practice as well as a coaching and wellness practice under our roof here at Eastwind. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today Leonarda Decker, licensed mental health counselor, who will be sharing her work with dual diagnosis. Welcome, Leonarda.
Thank you, and hello.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and how you eventually came to Eastwind. I know you've had a variety of life experiences that inform your therapeutic practice.
I will say that my road to Eastwind was really long when I considered all the experiences that I had. So this is my second career. I also studied law, and I have an associate's degree in law, and that was in my home country. And I grew up in Lithuania, and I came to this country in year 2000. So it feels probably to me more like home here now than in Lithuania, with all these decades being here. Then also I have a master's degree in theology. I studied it just because it was really interesting to study. I didn't enjoy working in the field as much. And so I just decided to explore other options and opportunities. And I found the program here. At that time, it was called rehabilitation counseling at the University of Iowa, and I became a student in master's program and graduated, and here I am, really enjoying this career. I don't think I will choose another one.
Now, you've worked in a variety of locations as well. Can you just give us a little bit of idea about the different types of therapeutic experiences you've had so far?
Yes, I did work in a variety of settings, both residential and outpatient. My career right after graduate school started in residential treatment for substance use, where I first learned about the co-occurring disorders. I also was the director of the co-occurring disorders program, at that time in Marion. That was part of Abbey Health. Then I worked for a while in corrections. I did mental health assessments in nursing homes and hospitals, and learned a lot of. I learned a lot about medical concerns and how they may influence mental health, and vice versa. So I seemingly tried it all out. Throughout my experience, I learned what I not only what I like, but also what I maybe don't like or don't want to do long term. And then I started exploring private practice in 2017. So I worked for someone else in private practice until I opened my own in 2021.
Wonderful. So, can you help us understand a little bit about what a rather dated term, dual diagnosis, means, or what we now oftentimes say as co occurring disorders means, and why that change has happened, and what range of disorders could this include?
Sure. Uh, so initially, when I heard the term, I think it was widely used as dual diagnosis. Then it was changed or used more frequently as co-occurring disorders. Now I think it's used both. But when I think about dual diagnosis, I'm thinking about how a person who has simultaneously mental health concern and substance use disorder, when I think about co-occurring disorders, that may include a wider variety of concerns, even if they are not necessarily diagnosed. But it could be, mental health condition like anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, and a variety of other disorders, and a variety of addictions, such as dependency on alcohol or marijuana or cocaine, but also non-chemical dependencies such as gambling or addiction to pornography, and so on. So even I would say, under co-occurring concerns, it would fall like homelessness and other things that contribute to mental health concerns.
So you really are seeing a wide range of co-occurring disorders in your practice. Is that right?
Absolutely, I think that that's almost well, very rare. It's very rare that people come only with one concern. It's one presenting issue on the surface, but as you have conversation and build that rapport, a lot of times you learn that usually people struggle more than just one issue.
Hmm. And is there anything about your vast experience in other fields or your life that has really drawn you to working with co-occurring disorders? Why do you like it so much?
Um, I so when I while I still was in grad school, I had a chance to do my practicums and my internship in substance abuse based agency, that agency that provided substance abuse treatment. And I figured that it was really, really strange that substance abuse treatment and mental health treatment were separated, because it's very hard for me to think about how to address substance abuse without looking into mental health. Because in my experience in the field, I have never met a person who decided, one morning they got up and decided to, like, this looks like a good day to become addicted to a certain substance. So usually it's accumulation of problems. Sometimes it's childhood trauma. Sometimes it's diagnosed or undiagnosed anxiety or depression. So there is always something else, and so substance abuse, much like incarceration, it becomes a symptom of
Hmm.
something that is bigger.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Now, what therapy techniques do you find most helpful in your hands with your clients? What do you like to use?
I would say that when it comes to substance abuse concerns, there is, I would say, inevitably some ambivalence and resistance. People want to make a change, but they also are hesitant
Hmm.
because they think that people are creatures of habit. And it's very difficult for us to make a change because we somehow, even if that comfort zone is not good for us, and we can recognize that, to make a change, it requires to move out of the comfort zone, and that's naturally uncomfortable. So I think that you just you learn to be, I think part of the therapy is learning to be uncomfortable, and doing the more the healthier behavior frequently enough when it becomes a new comfort zone, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
So because you're working with ambivalence and resistance, you're using things like motivational interviewing, correct?
So that's a big part of
Big
it,
part.
yes.
Okay.
And it's really, even if I don't use every part of the, as it's written in the book, I still my goal is to meet the client where the client is at. So people can be ready to make maybe superficial changes, or some may be ready to for abstinence, and some maybe just want to learn about uh, either addiction or how addiction and mental health um, uh, interact. So it's more like psychoeducational part. But I have to listen to the person in front of me to understand what they are looking for. And then moving forward, it really depends on what the person responds to the best. For example, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is evidence based, and probably every therapist in the world is trained in that to at least a certain degree. It can be definitely helpful to help people to recognize that they have certain thinking errors or cognitive errors that interfere with this happiness, because they make choices based on those errors. But it's not always a good technique for everybody. For some people, that's where I use acceptance and commitment therapy. It's not only recognizing that there is an issue, it's also being okay with having an issue and accepting it, and still choosing to live life that is based on your values and what's important to you, so that the mental health problems don't become your identity. They just become something that it just happens to be there, but it doesn't mean that you cannot experience happiness having those issues. So I really, my probably preferred approach in therapy in general is acceptance and commitment therapy, because it does not put as much pressure on a person, like you have to change the way you think. A big part of it is also, maybe a part of the change is accepting certain things, and letting go of certain aspects that you cannot change.
Wonderful. And those are so valuable, those tools. So thank you for sharing how you're addressing those issues and really meeting people where they are. So how do you decide, and this might seem like a very naive question, but how do you decide, or is this always a group decision between you and your client, what you address first? Is the mental health problem addressed first? Is the addiction addressed first? Or does it really depend? Or do you have a different approach?
Um, I like, if you look at the literature, the evidence-based most effective approach is addressing both mental health and substance use, or whatever the addiction might be, concerns at the same time. Um, because if one is addressed and the other one is not touched, then the second one that is not addressed is going to probably get worse and influence the issue that is already addressed. So I try to address them both at the same time, as much as it is possible. Again, I have to look at what the individual in front of me is ready for. And like I was just I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's really, substance use is a lot of times is just a symptom of already underlying mental health issue. So in therapy, I will try to dig deeper to understand that underlying issue. Um, and I have to also have realistic expectations. It's not my therapy, it's my patient's therapy. So I listen to what they're ready for. And when there is hesitance, I obviously will take that guide from my client, because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to talk about trauma and any mental health concerns if you never talked about that before, or if when you talked you weren't necessarily understood. So I'm very much respectful of that boundary. But it's also, therapy is a little bit about being uncomfortable. So it's a little bit of a push,
Mhm.
but always my client is my guide.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, this might seem like a broad question, but how long does someone typically work with you? Are you doing mostly short-term therapy? Is this long-term? Are people committed for the long haul? What are we talking?
I think that depends on the person's needs.
Okay.
I think that some people, well, so many, ideas run through my head, that some people, have more like adjustment disorders, right? Or situational anxiety, or like response to acute stress. And they probably will come just for a few sessions, maybe, 5 or 6, and they will feel better and they will be able to maintain that change on their own and possibly never come to therapy again. There are maybe some people who have more chronic conditions, and they will need a little bit more emotional and moral support as they go through challenging moments. And I feel like, because probably 95% of my clientele are students or student age people, I sincerely think that it's the most challenging period of life, where you have very little life experience and you are responsible for making huge decisions in your life, such as, career, maybe even grad school, and possibly, finding a partner and deciding, I don't know, if you are going to have a family and things like that. So those are huge life changing decisions, and you really just left your parents' home, maybe, So I think that a lot of times, like, everybody needs moral support and emotional support. I feel like at that young age, you really need a little bit more. Like, hey, tell me, am I going the right path here? And while I never tell my clients what to do, I'm here to listen and understand and maybe explore the options that they have.
Great. That sounds wonderful. Now, you are in network with some insurances, correct?
Correct. So I work with Blue, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and United Healthcare.
Okay, great. And do you offer telehealth and in-person sessions both, or just one or the other?
I offer
Okay,
both.
great. And you're licensed in the state of Iowa, right? So
That is
someone needs
correct.
to be in Iowa for your telehealth sessions.
That is
All
correct.
right. And do you um, have nights and weekends that you offer too, so people can see you outside of office hours or maybe some early mornings? How do you help people who need to work outside of their school schedule or work schedule?
Yes, I do have availability for evenings and weekends.
Oh, great. That helps so much. Thank you for that. Now, kind of a wrapping up question here. If there was something you wish everyone could do to help themselves, especially with the level of stress we have in our world right now, what would it be? Just one thing.
Well, I feel like stress is a part of life. There is no life without stress. So I think remembering that, and that it's a fact of life, is first step, and then deciding what I can control in terms of stressors, and maybe what some things that I can let go. And usually those are things that we cannot control. And I think it's in human nature is we want to feel in control and in charge. So understanding to where I have more power and control helps us to feel empowered, and like we can make a change as opposed to focusing on something that we don't have influence.
Thank you for that. That's a great thing to bring into mind every day. So thank you. Thank you so much today, Leonarda, for joining us and for sharing the important work that you're doing. Potential clients can reach out to Leonarda by going to her bio page at eastwindhealingcenter.com, which also includes her email, or they can call Leonarda's extension at our number 319-337-3313. So thank you again for joining us today, and thank you, listeners, for joining us too. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.